Hello, welcome along of Cultivate Communications, your host and moderator for today's webinar, Discover How to Really Engage Decision Makers. Before we jump in, I've got a few housekeeping items for you. Number one, we invite all attendees to check out Cultivate's LinkedIn group, the Revenue Engineering Forum. It's a place to continue the conversation about today's topic, as well as learn about future events. We are also recording today's session, and you will receive a link to the recording via email. We hope that you will take another look at it and even share it with your colleagues if you would like. And then lastly, at the end of the presentation, please watch for a feedback form to pop up. The first 10 individuals to complete the feedback form for us will receive a copy of Selling to Zebras, which is a book by our guest speaker today, Mr. Jeff Koser. So with that, let's jump in and get started. And so it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Jeff Koser. Jeff is the founder and CEO of Zebrafi and also the author of Selling to Zebras. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm very excited to be here.
Super. We're very happy to have you with us. So I'm curious, where does the name Zebrafi come from?
Well, as you can see, our book is called Selling to Zebras, and a zebra is your perfect prospect. And we call it a zebra because even a little 3-year-old that goes to the zoo can pick out a zebra, right? Everybody knows when they're looking at a zebra. And what we say is that a really good prospect should be just that easy to spot. And when you only sell to really good prospects and you get them the value that they anticipated they should receive, we say that that prospect, now customer, has been zebrafied. So that's where it comes from.
I love it. I love it. That's terrific. And so today's topic is customer value alignment. And I'd like, Jeff, if you could please start us off with your definition of customer value alignment.
I can do that. Thank you, Marianne. So if you look at the very top of the slide, you'll see sales, hunters, and farmers. And I think we all pretty well know what hunters are, those who acquire the new accounts for us, the new logos, and farmers are those who nurture, land on, or do the expansion and the retention of our existing customer base. But when we create our go-to-market and create materials, we don't often think about the sales operations folks to the right who control the CRM and a lot of our information about our customers. And we often don't go in front of what the hunters and the farmers do, which is what business dev on the left is all about. So we have to have consistent messaging flow through those three. And then if you look just below that line, we've got product marketing and we've got marketing communications. And there's very often a disconnect between what marketing is saying and feeding to the various groups and what is on our website versus what we actually sell to customers and the expectations that we set. And when those aren't aligned, then we have a problem down below when it ends up in client success. So client success has to deliver on what the customer expects. And if there's a disconnect, that becomes very difficult. And then when we really get it all together and we do understand what things the customer values, then we can even pull R&D in, because then they can start to develop products that do an even better job of differentiating us and creating value for our customer. And the reason we go around in a circle like that, and if you look at that center part, a zebra is there because what we say is the prospect that fits the best around this entire wheel, we call that perfect prospect a zebra. And the reason we call it a zebra is because even a 3-year-old, when you take them to the zoo, knows what a zebra is. They don't get confused. They don't think it's a giraffe. They don't think it's Jeffrey the giraffe. We'll use my name. How's that? Even they know what a zebra is. And we say that it should be just that easy to spot a great prospect.
Great. Super. Okay, Jeff, let's carry on to the meat of the business issues.
Glad to do it. Okay, so the way we queued this up, we're going to start with four problems, four business issues, if you will. And then what we're going to do is talk about recommendations on how to address them. So the very first one, customer value alignment starts to fray a little bit when we treat every prospect the same. And what happens is, if you treat every prospect the same, the high margin best opportunities tend to fall through the cracks. And we treat large deals and small deals the same based on almost a first come, first served, or maybe even a squeaky salesperson gets the wheel type of approach. And the way that you know that you actually are doing that and maybe have this problem is that your deals are smaller than you'd like, or maybe they're trending smaller. Your win rates, so the pipeline, fewer of those deals are closing, and sales cycles are longer than what you'd like in order to meet your business goals.
Yeah, got it. I think this is fairly common for organizations that do not clearly define, let's say, what an A, B, or C lead really consists of. And also when, let's say, marketing and sales have worked on the definition of a great lead, but they do it independently, not together.
Very, very true. In fact, just having an ABC classification is a very good start, and then making sure they both agree on it is nirvana, right?
Exactly.
Okay, the second problem we've talked about internally as we prepared is the notion of automated activity-based marketing potentially being a problem. So as I was thinking about this, I was thinking from a viewer's perspective, and viewers are maybe sitting back thinking, well, ABM, that's really a godsend. That's really been good for us. That's great technology, and it is. The problem comes in when you think about an executive receiving your message. So if you're targeting someone in the C-suite, for example, they might be like me, where at the end of the day, today, I'll have 50 to 75 email messages from people that I don't know. And if that product line, if you look at that second bullet, if that's product focused, I probably won't open that at all. I'll probably delete that without even opening it. But if it's a business problem that I have, I'll open it. And then if it starts talking about that company's product, again, I'll probably kill it. Yeah. So even though it's automated, it's GIGO. If the messaging isn't very good, it's still not going to hit the mark. And how you know you have this issue is that if your open rates are low, or if your conversion rates are low. And by conversion rates, we mean that they raise their hand, right? They say, oh, I'm interested in that, or I'd like that piece of material, or whatever the call to action is. Right. And then ultimately, ultimately what we really want to measure is do those deals end up on the forecast, and do they become customers, right?
Yes, very true. I can think of another way to look for this within an organization. A lot of marketers are tasked with finding an ROI on their marketing automation platform, and so this is another indicator, I would say, of this issue and this problem within an organization. And one of the most powerful use cases of using marketing automation is to actually make sure, again, kind of going back to my opening, that the messaging is relevant, right? And marketing automation is super for aligning meaningful communications and really delivering them at scale. So it all goes back to, delivering the right message to the right audience at the right time.
Customer value alignment, right?
Exactly. We're aligned.
Okay. So the third problem that we want to talk about today is product-based sales and marketing. And as I mentioned a second ago, if you mention your product in the body of a lead generation activity, that's going to turn most people off. But if salespeople don't have business issue and value-based materials, we're not arming them with the tools to actually have a value-based discussion. So we all talk about that, but then what we do is we talk about, maybe with engineering speak, for example, how great our product is. So case studies are also a problem. If you look at what most companies have front and center on their website, those case studies look like a reference for that customer. They lack business issues, and the biggest thing they lack is value and metrics. So if they do have a business issue, they don't tell you what actual quantifiable value was created for that customer. And that's what's needed to differentiate from the competition. And they don't have a business case. And the evidence that this problem exists is that salespeople will often give the excuse that price is the reason we didn't win that deal.
True enough, right? So I'm going to defend marketers a little bit here. So it totally makes sense to have some collateral, to have messaging about your products and services, but don't stop there. I think from a marketer's perspective, we're trained to be really good at positioning our products. And so there's a time and place for that. But, a sales conversation is what we're getting at here is a two-way dialogue. And so if all you're doing is talking about yourself, it's not a very interesting conversation.
That often, what you just identified, starts the first war between sales and marketing, right? That what happens is, you're right, marketers are good at product, and they're good at providing those types of materials, and those are absolutely necessary. We're not saying you shouldn't have those. I'm not saying you shouldn't have those. We just need to augment it with tools that allow the salespeople to change the conversation to what a buyer cares about, which is pain or
Right.
a business problem or an opportunity.
Exactly. Agree.
Are we aligned, Marianne?
Yeah, we're aligned again.
Okay. And the fourth issue is lack of value-based tools for account management. So these are the account managers, these are the farmers, and these are the folks that take care of retaining customers and expanding that customer base. And what starts to happen over time, after you secure a piece of business, maybe when you originally sold it, you had a relationship at the decision maker level. But over time, that gets lowered down where the end user of the solution becomes maybe a middle manager or maybe an everyday user. And as a result, that relationship gets lower in the organization. So when you call in next time, you get relegated to that level.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, price becomes important again, which means margins are lower, and they start pressuring you to the point where they maybe start asking for a price that you can't even afford to provide, and that client churns. So the evidence that you've got this issue is that your revenue goals aren't being achieved and your profit goals are suffering.
So Jeff, what are a couple of examples of value-based account management tools?
So account managers, those farmers that are taking care of your existing customers, they need to be able to build a business case for an existing customer that proves that that customer is still getting value from buying from your solution, because you have to remember the competitors are coming after that customer. So you have to continue to prove your value, otherwise that customer could churn on you.
Got it. All right, so then what we're going to do is pause for a moment and ask the audience a poll question. So please respond with your answer, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
So thanks for responding to our polling question, everybody. So now we're going to flow into our recommendations. So we queued up those 4 business issues. So now we're going to talk about 4 recommendations that tie into those. So the first one is to create the profile of your perfect prospect. So what this is this is where you define the 7 attributes of every deal you've ever done, literally. And this will apply to future business that you do with existing customers as well as new prospects. And these 7 attributes start with organizational profile. That's number 1. Organizational profile is the cultural fit between you and where you do particularly well with customers that become some of your best customers. Operations, that's where you dive into the business problems that you solve and the pain that you alleviate for your best customers. And also the value that is identified that represents those where you would create the strongest fit. And these are in strategic order now. So it goes organization, operations, and next is the person we call power. Power is the decision maker. And the reason we call that person power is because power doesn't really have a title. Power is the person that can buy from you even if they don't have a budget, or if they're an existing customer, they can spend a little bit more with you because they have the ability, the power, if you will, to move dollars around. Now, if you notice, everything is locked underneath power in our pictorial view here on the right: funding, value, technology, and service. And the reason for that is if you're not at power, do you really know what adequate funding would be for your solution? So that's number 4. Number 5 is, what's the ROI you have to be able to prove in order to create differentiation that justifies a purchase of your solution? 6th is technology. Technology is a double-edged sword. There's always technology involved in every deal today. So think of, even if you're not a technology company, you might be thinking, well, I'm not a software company, or maybe you are, but if you're a manufacturer, there's generally some type of technology. Maybe it's engineering that brings you competitive advantage. Maybe it's something associated with a technology that you bought and you use to deliver your solution. But it's what you have that creates differentiation, and it's also what your competitor has that differentiates against you. So that's that double-edged sword I mentioned before. And then finally, the 7th is service. And service is the amount of service that your best customers need to be successful that they're willing to pay for. So if you think about those final 4 underneath power, without access to that ultimate decision maker, these last 4 don't matter. So we lock them out until we get to power. So those are the 7 attributes. And once you define those, now what you do is you qualify all new opportunities against those 7. So now your new account sellers are focused, your business development efforts are focused, and the entire organizational go-to-market is aligned with this perfect customer where you know you can bring value better than anyone else. Your organizational resources are also prioritized. So it's no longer that squeaky wheel that we talked about before. Now everyone, including not just sales, but your pre-sales, your sales management, your executive management, and on big deals, if you allow R&D to get involved, for example, now you've got a disciplined way to determine which deals should receive those types of resources.
That's powerful. So that's a very comprehensive list also. So how did you arrive at these 7?
Lots of mistakes. No, it's literally, we originally came up with this is what the zebra is these 7 attributes.
Mm-hmm.
We originally came up with these 7 back when I was helping build a software company that was competing against SAP and Oracle. So literally every deal, we were working harder to get in the deal than they were working to get deals, which is what we used to say. So we had to figure out where we fit so well that we would win, or we just weren't going to survive. So that's where this was born.
All right. Yeah, very, very good stuff.
Okay, our second recommendation, we talked about building a business case. So how do you go about doing that? Well, it starts with your customers. And we recommend that you do something called a voice of the customer analysis, so that you can extract messaging in their words from that person that we talked about before, from Power's perspective. What problems and pain did you solve? And most importantly, what value did you create when you solved it? And then you write these up in a story form so that salespeople learn how to tell those stories, and in a miniature form, more like a classic case study, but now it has business issues, it has quotes, and it has metrics. And you turn those into a quantifiable business case. And what you're doing is you're transforming your organization away from the voice of the salesperson, which, by the way, none of us tend to believe. We're even us sales and marketing people, we tend not to believe salespeople that call on us, because we're culturally conditioned not to believe literally the messaging that they deliver. So if it's delivered in a format where it came directly from your customer, it's more believable. And then that differentiates you from the competition, where the very way you start to sell becomes part of the competitive advantage, and it becomes, that transforms you into a value-based go-to-market approach.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the business case is actually a tool.
The business case is a tool. The business case identifies those problems that originated from the gold that we mined from the customer base, and the value is based on what they said was accomplished for them. So the approach becomes, we're going to pursue prospects where we know they're similar to our customers, because we started with that zebra first, so they're very similar to our best customers. And now we're positioning a business case which allows them to see if there's enough value to spend time investigating and working through a sales cycle with us. So we say change the game. Meet with the decision maker early. That person we've been defining as Power. Now, this is not a novel idea. This is not a new concept. In fact, power-based selling, strategic selling was written 40 years ago. If any of you guys have ever heard of solution selling, that's been around for about 40 years. All the good sales methodologies say that you should meet with Power early, but it's harder than ever before to do that, and you have to earn the right to do that. And we actually have software that helps you do this, because all these things we've been talking about, it takes them and it puts them into a flow that guides the buyer and the seller. And it starts with research. So you have to identify that you really do have a really good prospect. You find proof that they have the business problem that you've solved for others, and then you prepare a preliminary business case. So what is that? That's sort of a guess. We'll use a bigger word here. It's sort of a hypothesis of the value that you can create for that prospect, because they're similar to your best customers, where you've created similar value. Then you create penetration messaging, and this is where the art of marketing comes in. You take these value-based nuggets that we've mined out of our customer base, and you turn that into messaging that's worthy of Power. And when you do get in front of Power, that's the middle part there. You gain sponsorship. So Power is still going to be skeptical. They're born with that gene. And I'll just leave it at that. They're born with that gene. So when you present that preliminary business case, your next step is to ask them for permission to work with their stakeholders, the people they would trust, to verify it. So it goes something like this. I targeted you because you're really similar to my best customers. Here's the proof I found. Here's a business case that I pre-prepared for you based on you being similar to my best customers. I don't expect you to believe it today. I'm just asking you if this is enough value that it would be interesting enough for you to investigate it, and would you assign people you trust to investigate it? And when you sell this way, if you felt that last point, you're asking power to either opt in or opt out. And that creates a good feeling on their side because they already had that power anyway, but you're showing you recognize it. And their decision to opt in or out will depend on the amount of pain they have, the amount of value you can create, and whether or not they have an urgent need to solve that pain.
Makes a lot of sense, Jeff. So from the perspective of power, what goes into preparing to meet with power? Can you elaborate on that?
You bet. Your research, we believe, is something that you should actually even present to power, and our guided selling software helps you do that. You pull out a couple of nuggets that shows you did your homework. I cared enough and I target well enough that I can put the time in to make sure that I'm really prepared to talk with you. Because statistics show that 85% of the meetings that happen are off target, either because salespeople target the wrong person, who is not even the right person for a decision to buy from you, or their preparation is off and they miss the mark. So that's why executives are so reticent to provide or allow us to have a meeting today. I'll go into other statistics later when we talk next about the next bullet or the next slide, but a considerable portion of the deal is done before power even grants us a meeting.
Agreed.
Okay, next recommendation. Proactively retain and expand your existing customers. So in addition to scoring prospects, we recommend that you use this profile, this perfect customer profile, to score your existing customers as well, because a lot of the wrong customers might have been sold, and or you might be providing the same level of customer support, client success resources to those accounts, again, uniformly, without regard for which are the high value customers, which ones present the most potential for expansion and for profitability for the company. And also, this helps identify which of those customers that you want to retain might be at risk. Like you mentioned before with your messaging, you might identify A, B, and C prospects. Well, this helps you identify A, B, and C customers as well. And then we recommend that you build a business case for existing customers. And our guided selling software helps you do that, and then walks you through a process to verify with them how much value they're already getting from you and how much they're frankly leaving on the table that they could still get. And that way you're positioning your farmers as a trusted resource that's trying to get more value for the customer, whether they spend more with you or continue at that exact same level.
Got it. So that really resonates. That's good. So thinking back to what we all hear and experience in our businesses, that it's less costly to manage and maintain an existing customer versus acquiring a new one. So is that kind of rolled into this thinking and this approach?
It absolutely is. And within that, I think they say that it costs 7 times the amount to retain an existing customer. But it can also cost you an awful lot to retain a customer that you shouldn't be putting resources in to retain. Right. So you want to be the one to proactively decide which is which.
Right.
Okay, so we've gone through 4 business issues and we've gone through 4 recommendations. So if you have these business issues and you care to solve them, and you want to understand what are the steps to figuring out if this is right for you, there's 2 things we recommend. There's the good fit analysis and there's the best practice assessment. So the good fit analysis, this is where you determine where are you on your path right now today? What are the tools? What are the case studies that you have that might lend themselves towards a value-based message and a business case? And the best practice assessment is the vision of where you'd like to be. So it's the goal. Then we gap those two and we quantify closing that gap. And that creates a business case around moving towards this value-based selling model.
Super. We can also leverage those goals and that business case that's defined, and use that to develop either an annual plan or a quarterly plan that you can really truly prove the value of going through this process, but then take it to the next level with your marketing and show that your marketing is aligned to business objectives and to the go-to-market strategy. And with that plan, then you can ensure that you are aligning to your A, B, and C lead definitions. And from there, work to continually nurture sales ready leads until you can actually deliver them to sales when you have that unified, agreed upon lead definition.
Excellent.
Secondly, we offer what we're calling a momentum workshop. So if you identify that you've got a market opportunity and you want to zero in on, let's say, launching a new product where you may not have a whole lot of success stories or ammunition, let's build up your brand and figure out how to create a strong digital presence and then plan out lead generation that is going to drive qualified leads.
Very good. So there's multiple places to get started and to progress forward. So hopefully you can now see how we've moved around this complete circle, how the tools that hunters and farmers receive and that business development can use on the front end, and that the sales operations folks can supply the sales team, are completely aligned with what marketing communications is sharing and what product marketing is driving towards. And then when we move into client success, who touch the customer after he or she buys from us, they're delivering the business case and they understand what the definition of success is. And R&D is designing new products that create even more value and further differentiate your entire organization. So now that the customer is completely aligned with our go-to-market, the way that we sell and the way that we deliver becomes a key part of our differentiation.
Great. Now, this whole approach, this process, no doubt requires change management within an organization. So what do you recommend to a person that is power as far as addressing all of the necessary cultural changes that would be required?
So you hit on the exact word. There is cultural change involved, and cultural change requires repetition. It requires the alignment with power, as you mentioned. So the executive sponsor has to stay involved, and typically it involves weekly or bi-weekly webinars to ensure that everyone understands the tools, understands the new customer that we want to serve. Everyone in the organization knows what a zebra is and can help identify that and feels empowered to challenge that, and understands that now we want to become known as the company that sells with a business case, but also knows that we're not done until we actually deliver on that business case. And getting that type of alignment up and down and around this entire circle, like you referenced, does require a good amount of change management.
All right, Jeff, this is super excellent information. Take us home.
Okay. We've got an up arrow. No presentation is complete without an up arrow, right? So if you feel like you have a lot of these business issues, don't feel bad. You're not alone. In fact, most companies have product-based marketing that's really pretty good, but they lack the value-based approach that we've been talking about. And what's needed, we've found over the years, is a paint-by-the-numbers approach. So guided selling software that helps both the buyer and the seller through what really is a buying process. It's the way a prospect wants to buy and generally is in control of to begin with. And I promised I'd provide a few other statistics. So the new statistics, the old statistics used to say that 60 to 70% of the deal is done before the prospect ever even lets you have a meeting. This is the newest statistic from Forrester. 57% of the deals are done before they ever let you have a meeting. And 90% of the solutions that are purchased come from a recommendation from someone today. So this is why that voice of the customer work is so important, because customers believe other customers' success.
Really. All right. Well, this has been a really very informative and helps marketers and sales and business executives think about how to go to market in 2021 and the necessary changes that they may have to consider and work towards. So Jeff, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for being a part of our revenue engineering series. We hope to speak with you again very soon.
Always a pleasure, Marianne.
Thank you very much. And everyone who is attending, please don't leave quite yet. We have a special offer for you. In just a moment, you'll see a feedback survey pop up. And the first 10 folks that complete that survey for us will receive Selling to Zebras, Jeff Koser's book. Thank you, everyone, for attending. If you have any questions for us, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.